Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. As part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular, the AWD1100 C# Programming Fundamentals course, I'm doing a series of video presentations, mainly based off of the PowerPoints for the book that will be used for the class. That book, as you can see on screen, is Muroc C# 2015. Now, I've done PowerPoint presentations regarding the first 8 chapters of the book. So I'm now going to do Chapter 9, how to work with dates and strings. In addition to these PowerPoint presentations, I've also been creating a series of programs based on a mythical payroll app, and I'm doing this in 2 ways. First, as a console application, and second, as a GUI application, where I'm adding features and functionality from basically each chapter as we go along. Sometimes it'll be over 2 chapters. So, let's get started on Chapter 9, how to work with dates and strings. As always, as we start going through this, I'm not going to read objectives to you. All right? We will talk about strings, we will talk about string builders, we will talk about dates. All right? Notice when you work with dates, by default, the system assumes you're going to be working with the year, the month, the day, the hour, the minute, and the second. And if you want to, even the millisecond, which is 1/100th of a second. I think it's, wait a minute, millisecond would be 1,000th of a second. All right? So you can be that precise with time. I know my oldest daughter called my wife the other night and asked what time she was born. All right? And she wanted to know, if possible, to the minute. All right, that's typically what people want. So if you were born today, which is what, July 17th, and you were born at 7 a.m., which is almost the time, then it would be 2019 07 17 700, and you'd probably leave that off. That kind of an idea. All right, notice that when you are working with dates and times, you can, as it says, you can create a date time value by putting your stuff in a string and then parsing it or converting it into a date time value. And here are some examples on the screen. I'm not going to go over those right now because hopefully looking at them makes sense. Again, you'll notice here we have just the year, the month, and the day. Here, year, month, day, hour, minute, second. All right. Again, normally, I very rarely, if ever, unless you were doing something in the scientific realm, you probably wouldn't care about milliseconds. All right. So here we're parsing it from strings instead of putting it in like this. All right. So some valid date formats. Kind of interesting on there. You may or may not know this. You may or may not care. But these are valid date formats, and I don't know if these are all of them or not. I haven't gone out and checked that. But pretty much the universal, unless it's changed recently, the universal separator for dates has been periods, and that's the way it is in other countries. So in other countries, using this right here, other countries would probably either say 01 period 30 period 2016 or 2016 period 01 period 30. Okay? So you can see some of the different formats, again, forward slashes or dashes, etc. This would be military time, in which case you wouldn't have an AM or a PM. You can put leading, you know, if it's a 0, or you can leave it off. You can go and put seconds in, etc. All right. Date time properties. The now is kind of neat because, as it says, it returns the current date and the current time. So if that's what I'm interested in. Years ago, during the summer, I did a project for a medical clinic. And what they wanted is they were constantly having people check into their facility. And they wanted each person that was in there to have a unique number when they checked in. They might have already had a patient number, but they wanted a unique ID number, and they wanted it based off of the current date and the current time to the millisecond. All right, the chances of two people, there were I think about 4 of these clinics, but the chance of 2 people, and I think that the clinic number was in there too, I don't remember to be honest with you, but the chance of 2 people going to the same clinic and being served at the same exact millisecond, if you had 2 different appointment people, let's say, are almost none. Okay? So here's some of the methods that you can use for formatting the date and formatting the time. And I believe next they'll show some examples. Yeah, there they are. All right? Long and short, as you can tell, for the date or the time. And you can see what happens in here. As it says, the format that's used by default for the date or the time depends on your computer's regional settings. Quite often you can go in and change that too. In fact, usually you can. When you work with dates and times, notice what you can do here. You can grab or pluck off any component, the month, the day, the year, the hour, the minute, the second, the time of the day of the week, the day of the year, etc. So here's an example again that goes through many of these. This is the kind of thing, in my humble opinion, we can look at examples, but until you actually go out and create some of your own, not going to make a lot of sense. What I can see doing when we get to that point is with our payroll program, maybe we'll add a field that's called hire date. All right, and then based off of that hire date, you'll be able at any time to click a button or do whatever and find out somebody's years of service or how many days they've been employed by the company, etc. Why might you want to do that? Well, let's assume, for example, that every 6 months, and you declare that to be, what, 182 and a half days? So or maybe 183 days. So every 183 days, you give somebody an employee review type of thing. All right? There's other things too, like notice leap year. All right. Here's code, as it says, that uses the day of the week property, as it says, and enumeration. So you can ask if it's a Saturday or a Sunday. And if it's one or the other, you can say it's the weekend. Otherwise, it's a weekday. All right. Different operations that you can work on for dates and times. Again, why would add days, add months, etc.? Those may be important if you're working on a C# programming application that deals, for example, it may have databases, it may not, but as an example, if you're doing something where you're working with shipping, order dates and ship dates, and you promise that when somebody orders something, it will be shipped within 10 days. So you could grab the order date, add 10 to it, and that would be the max time that you'd have before you'd have to ship it. All right. Sometimes places still have things set up that if you pay within 30 days of the time you get your bill, you might get a 10% decrease, in what you owe. You could use add months for that. All right. Add years, you could probably figure out somebody's birthday with that. All right. So here's some examples. All right. Time span. As it says, a time span value represents a period of time that are stored as ticks. As mentioned there, you can use days, hours, minutes, and seconds to get portions of that value. So you can kind of imagine tick, 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 kind of like as the seconds are going by on a clock. All right. A statement that uses the minus operator to subtract two dates. So notice that you can do date addition and date subtraction. Date multiplication I don't think makes sense. Date division or modulus I don't think makes sense. But you can use some of the relational operators like greater than to see if one date is greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal to another date. All right, let me check my time here. This is early because I'm only around 11 minutes, but we're breaking here from dates to going to strings, so I think this is a natural place to stop with the first part of this lecture. So I'll be back with part 2 to begin the string process in just a couple moments.